Program support for Ask a Question, Save a Life comes from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, Garrett Lee Smith Memorial Act.
This program is made possible in part by the Kim Foundation, reminding viewers there is help, there's hope, and there's healing for lives touched by mental illness. Learn more at thekimfoundation.org.
Program support comes from Bryan Mental Health Services, offering hope and treatment for patients with mental health issues and their families. More information can be found at bryanhealth.org or by calling 402-481-5991.
What is depression?
Where do I get help?
Do you know the warning signs?
What should I do?
It's okay to talk about suicide.
Suicide of our military service members is at an all-time high. It is now surpassing the rate of the general population.
Females attempt suicide 3 times more than males.
Most individuals who are suicidal often display cues or warning signs.
Older adults have a rate of suicide 50% higher than that of all other ages.
Ask a question, save a life.
Ask a question, save a life.
Ask a question, save a life.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Myers, Bryan Medical Center Mental Health Services Manager and co-chair of the Nebraska State Suicide Prevention Coalition. Suicide is a public health problem that impacts all ages. Suicide is preventable, and by becoming more educated about suicide prevention, the more lives we can save. There's a myth that says if we talk about suicide, it will give somebody the idea. This is indeed a myth. The best thing we can do is to talk about it. By raising the question of suicide without showing shock or disapproval, shows the person you're taking them seriously and are responding to their pain. Today's program is going to focus on suicide prevention in our adolescent population.
My name is Madeline, and I thought about suicide. I had a plan to kill myself.
Hi, I'm Jennifer.
And I'm Ford, and I have a daughter that wanted to die.
Before Madeline came to us, I had absolutely no idea that she was having suicidal thoughts or she was hurting herself in any way.
We more just kind of discovered by accident that she was cutting, and we were terrified.
We have lost a child to suicide.
Ryan was bullied a lot during his 6th grade year. He loved cars. Every time we would drive or go somewhere, he loved pointing out different cars.
He was actually holding his little sister and smiling, all happy. The time that this happened, he told his mom he was going to go outside and play, or he was going to go look for a friend, but the friend ended up not being there. And so
I remember driving up, and when Ryan had hung himself, he'd hung himself from a tree on a main street.
it was a heartbreaking moment.
I'm Nikki, and I lost a friend to suicide. And we had science together. He had told me the night before that, he was contemplating, that he was going to commit suicide. He's like, hey, you want to know something? And I was like, yeah, sure. So he's like, well, I think I'm going to do it tonight. And I was it took me back, but there's, at that age, I feel like a lot of kids kind of contemplate it. So it was something that I had heard a lot from other students, so I didn't take it seriously. In a sense, like I almost felt responsible because I didn't tell somebody about it. So it's a guilt that like I kind of still carry with me today too, because it was like if I told somebody, maybe I could have prevented it.
There are definitely signs that things were going in a negative direction with Madeline. She was more moody, and you can pass that off as a teenager.
But my mood swings started to get a little more drastic, and I started closing myself off and spending a lot of time by myself.
She wasn't sleeping well. Again, teenagers have different irregular sleeping patterns, but all of those things combined, and her personality changed. She wasn't this bright, cheery person anymore. She was rarely happy.
I would come to school some days and just be in the worst mood, didn't want to talk to anybody, and everyone would come up, "Are you okay?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, sure, I'm fine, just go away." And I guess kind of through all this, I've found that a lot more people than I thought are a lot like me.
People that don't have a mental illness have no clue what it's like to have that inside of your head. And they think that it's not crazy, it's not anything, it's something that happens. It's just a part of life for some people. And I told Madeline, "You're not crazy, you don't belong in an asylum, you need help. We all need help. If I broke a bone in my arm, I would go to the hospital. If there's something broke in my brain, I go to the hospital to try to get that help."
For someone who has a friend that's suicidal, I would say if you see a warning sign, or if they, openly just come out and say it, don't take it lightly. It's not a joke. Even if they have a little short laughter at the end of it, it's a serious matter, and you don't want to hold that guilt inside of you. So I would go to the nearest adult, or talk to a teacher, talk to the counselor, talk to your parents, talk to somebody to let them know what's going on, so that way it can get into the right person's hands who can help your friend out, because you don't want to lose them.
If Madeline had gone to a friend and said, "Please don't tell my parents, please don't tell anyone about this," again, I would rather have my best friend really upset with me and alive than dead.
Don't keep secrets, especially when your friend gives you a cue that they could possibly be thinking about suicide, and they give you that don't tell anybody. They might be angry at you for the time being once they find out that you told somebody, but when they are living their life later on, they're gonna thank you, and they're gonna, the anger will stop, the anger will end. Once they get help, they'll realize that they're lucky to have a friend like you.
If you're concerned about your friend, if you're afraid that they're going to do something that could seriously harm them or whatever, you have to ask yourself, is it worth it to be their friend and lose them, or for them to hate you but they're still alive?
Don't hesitate. Take it seriously until you find out it's not serious, but it is something that definitely you need to pay attention to and follow through with.
Parents, ask a question, save a life. You don't be afraid to ask your children if they're contemplating suicide, because you can save their life for it.
Talk to your kids. And I know a lot of parents say, "Oh, I talk to my kids all the time and all they tell me is, oh, school was fine." Dig a little deeper. If you want to know what's going on in their life, you have to dig deeper.
And there are so many parents that are afraid to talk to their children, and we hear the PSAs on the radio and on television. You have to talk to your kids. You have to learn how to talk to your kids. I hope that people aren't desensitized with that. And they have to talk to their children about important things. It's not, how was your day? What'd you do? It's, how'd you feel? How do you feel today? What's wrong? Is there anything I can do to help? You have to communicate.
It was a lot of talking with my parents, and they were the reason that I told them I was having these thoughts and I had this plan, because I told them there was that 1% of me that could not do that to them. I could not hurt them like that. That made me tell them, okay, I need some serious help.
Just talk to your kids, and it's important to, you know, be there for them, and you know, you need to be a parent, but it's also important, especially during teenage years, to be a friend as well, and somebody that they can confide in, and somebody that they can come to with anything, and you know, don't put up a wall where they don't feel like they can't talk to you about anything and everything, and just ultimately be there for them.
Don't hold it all in. That only makes it worse. I thought, you know, this is my problem, I can handle this myself, and that's not the case. It's so much easier to handle when you tell people about it and ask for help.
You don't have to go through it alone. You just don't. There are so many people out there that care about you, that can help, that walling yourself away, shutting yourself in your room, shutting yourself off from everyone, it's just going to make things worse.
Ask your family member if they're thinking about suicide. You're not going to give someone an idea simply by asking them. And you could save their life. And don't be afraid to ask a second time or a third time. And be prepared to hear the answer.
If you're thinking about suicide, my message would be that, you know, think about your loved ones and think about how this is going to hurt and affect your family and your friends, and that ultimately, you know, you're leaving everybody with like a burden on them, thinking, what could I have done differently? What did they feel like, you know, they're responsible for something because they didn't catch any cues, because there are so many, and it's not fair to anybody else, and it's not fair to yourself, because you have so much more to do and you have so much more to show the world, and you're just cutting everything short.
For every person that's feeling hurt or bullied or thinking about suicide, there are so many people around you that love you and that will be willing to, if they just knew that you're thinking about suicide, there are so many people that are around you that show you love and are interested in you. And you're not alone. A lot of people have committed suicide. Please don't do it. It hurts the family. It hurts the community. It's hard. It will put other people in pain.
I understand that someone would not think about suicide as an answer to their problem, that suicide often is just a way that people want to end the hurt. People who think about suicide are often just in so much pain that it's the way that they're trying to end the pain that they're in. And what I would say is that there are other ways that we can try and help you end your pain.
It feels like you're at the bottom of an empty well, and all you can see is a little light when you look up. But you can reach, I mean, you can get there. You don't have to do it alone, no matter what, no matter how alone they feel. They're not alone.
One of the risk factors for suicide we have heard about is depression. Not all individuals with depression are suicidal. However, 90% of those who die by suicide had a diagnosed mental illness or would have been diagnosed, most commonly with depression. Other risk factors include substance abuse, family history of suicide, hopelessness, impulsiveness, or aggressive behavior, barriers to receiving needed treatment, financial, social, work, or relationship loss, physical illness, and lack of connectedness. Warning signs include talking about wanting to die, talking about hopelessness or having no purpose, acting anxious or reckless, sleeping too much or too little, withdrawing or feeling isolated, uncontrolled anger, and dramatic mood changes. I am Dr. Dave Myers. If you are concerned about somebody, ask a question, save a life.
It's okay to ask the person if they have thoughts of hurting themselves.
Get help for mental, physical, and substance abuse disorders.
If you know of someone who may be suicidal, restricting access to lethal methods of suicide like firearms is extremely important.
Pay attention to the warning signs of depression.
Connected us to family, to the community, and to friends. Saves lives.
Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
If you ever feel like you need to talk to somebody,
if you're feeling suicidal,
don't be afraid to ask for help.
Asking for help is a sign of strength.
Please call the U.S. National Suicide Prevention Hotline.
1-800-273-TALK.
Or visit your nearest emergency room.
Ask a question, save a life.
Ask a question, save a life.
Ask a question, save a life.